Welcome back to Trauma-Informed Practices for Schools, also known as TIPS. Today we're going to be talking about trauma's impact on emotional development. In the last segment, we talked about trauma and the brain. And we're reminded that trauma explains the behavior. It doesn't excuse the behavior. And how important it is for us to remember that it's not the child's fault that they are traumatized. They were doing the best they could at the time, and now those behaviors have really become maladaptive and are impacting your classrooms. So how do we understand what is happening around their development so that we can then be of assistance to them and teaching them new ways to manage their behaviors in healthy ways? So we're going to start out with a video. It's a clip from the movie Freedom Writers, an excellent movie with Hilary Swank as a new teacher. And in her classroom, you're going to see a lot of kids and things happening. And I'd like you to take note, maybe even jot a few notes down about what you observe that might be related to traumatic responses. I do want to give a content warning here. In this video clip and the one that we will show afterwards, there are some violent scenes in the classroom. So take a deep breath. I'm going to show that video now, and then we'll have some questions and follow up with another video. So here we go.
Alejandro Santiago. Andre Bryant. Eva Benitez. Eva. Not Eva. Ava. I have to go to the bathroom. Okay, make sure that you take
I know.
Ben Samuels.
That white boy hoping he's in the wrong room.
I gotta get out of here.
Cindy Nagor. Right here. Is that correct? Jamal Hill.
Man, what am I doing in here? So ghetto-ass class got people in here looking like a bad rerun of Cops and shit. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Shoot.
Are you Jamal?
Yeah.
Well, for some reason they have you registered in this class.
Man, that's some bullshit.
It's the dumb class, cuz. Means you're too dumb.
Man, say it to my face, cuz.
I just did. You see what I mean? Dumb.
Man, I know you ain't talking to me.
Okay.
Look, homie, I'll beat that ass, homeboy.
Can you please sit back
Look,
down?
I got your spot on the scene. That's why you're over there wagging your tongue.
Please sit back in your seat.
Look, your spot is good as gold. I don't know why you keep wasting your time coming to practice with them 2-year-old lights on your feet. Man, you don't know nothing about me, cuz. Broke down my whole situation.
Jamal?
Show you my face now, right? Sit your fuck ass down. Sit your fuck ass down.
I'm running ass
Sit
off
your
the
ass down.
field.
What's up, homie? I mean, what's good, man? Sit your ass down, homie.
Excuse me. May I please get some help in here?
Some old stuff, cuz. You ain't saying no bad up. You touching me now? Just sit down, homie.
I'm not gonna jail this kid.
Look at my face now, right?
Nothing for me, homeboy. I will run your ass off.
Sit your ass
I'ma
back
see.
down.
Don't even worry about it. I'ma
Sit
see.
down, homeboy. Tell him. Sit his ass down.
Sit your ass
Thank you.
Man, I'm out of here, man. That's some bullshit.
Aaron?
Aaron, this is Brian Guilford. He teaches junior English and the Distinguished Honors class.
Oh, hi. Aaron Gruwell. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. You saw a little action today, I hear.
It happened so fast.
Well, don't be discouraged. You put your time in a few years, you'll be able to teach juniors. They're a pleasure. By then, most of your kids will be gone anyway.
What do you mean?
Well, eventually, they just stop coming.
Well, if I do my job, they might be lining up at the door. Right?
I'm guessing for some of you that this behavior actually looks familiar. Some of the behavior. Hopefully not all of it. And we know how disruptive that can be to classrooms. And I also want to point out disruptive to you and your central nervous system. No one wants to go to school and manage these kinds of situations. It's just not good. So here's some questions for you to consider. Based on what we've learned, what ways are the characters in the story like the kids that you may be working with right now? What beliefs do the staff in the clip actually have about these youth? And how might they have been impacted by seeing these kinds of scenes repeatedly and created paradigms around what is true about these kids? Remember, paradigms, how we see the world, our ideas, things that we see as truth about how things are, the lens through which we look. Finally, what do you believe contributes to the way that these kids think, feel, and behave? Just as a side note, I use the word children and kids very purposefully. I understand that the term youth is used by many people, but I want to be constantly reminded that these are children. And in California, they're children until the age 25. We know that the brain is not fully developed, especially in male children, until they are 25. This is impacting the ways that people are dealing with kids who are in custody, and the juvenile justice system has actually sent back kids 25 and younger to local juvenile halls so that they can get the treatment that they need in an environment where they are still seen as children with developing brains. So I want to stay mindful. Again, and I've said it repeatedly, it doesn't excuse the behavior. But these children have experienced things that have informed them and created paradigms for them about how to behave and act so that they can remain safe. So I invite you to consider these 3 questions and jot some notes down. Just take a minute and sit with them. How is Hilary Swank's character feeling? How are the other 2 characters who are actually also teachers feeling? And what is their belief system about these kids? And then what do you think is going on for the kids in the video? If you can focus on 1 or 2 of them and really think about that, what might be going on behind the scenes that we might not be aware of from just observing their behavior? I invite you to hit pause. Take a look back at your notes and what we've already learned. Try to take judgment out of your mind about the behavior and think instead about what does it tell me about these children and then also the teachers. Once you've done that, I invite you then to proceed on, and we're going to show a second video which tells us a little bit about the behind the scenes experiences that these kids are having. Again, I want to mention that the scenes in the next video are more graphic than in the prior video. So I really want to remind you to take a drink of water, sit down in a quiet place, and as you're watching this second video, take a moment to think about what the impact of what you're witnessing in the behind the scenes of these children's lives, how it might be correlated to their behaviors in the classroom based on what we know now about the impact of trauma and our last lesson, trauma in the brain. All that talk about reactivity and what happens to the central nervous system. So really trying to now apply your learning so that you can become like that scientist looking at what's happening and then figuring out what are the components underneath that are bringing this behavior to bear. Let's take a look at the video.
In every war, there is an enemy. I watched my mother being half beaten to death and watched as blood and tears streamed down her face. I felt useless and scared and furious at the same time. I could still feel the sting of the belt on my back and my legs. One time, he couldn't pay the rent, And that night, he stopped us on the street and pointed to the concrete. He said, "Pick a spot."
Clyde was my boy. He had my back plenty of times. We was like one fist, me and him, one army.
Heavy, yeah. It's the real shit right here. Nobody jumps us now. We gotta practice, cause this got power. You shoot it, it throw you.
I sat there till the police came. But when they come, all they see is a dead body, a gun, and a nigga. They took me to juvenile hall. First night was the scariest. Inmates banging on the walls, throwing up their gang signs, yelling out who they were, where they from. I cried my first night. Can't never let nobody know that. I spent the next few years in and out of cells. Every day I'd worry, when will I be free?
My brother taught me what the life is for a young black man. Do what you have to. Pimp, deal, whatever. Learn what colors to learn. Gang boundaries. You can stay on one corner, you can't stay on another. Learn to be quiet. The wrong word can get you popped.
If you look in my eyes, you'll see a loving girl. If you look at my smile, you'll see nothing wrong. If you pull up my shirt, you'll see the bruises. What did I do to make him so mad?
At 16, I've seen more dead bodies than a mortician. Every time I step out my door, I'm faced with the risk of being shot. To the outside world, it's just another dead body on the street corner. They don't know that he was my friend.
During the war in Cambodia, the camp stripped away my father's dignity. He sometimes tries to hurt my mom and me. I feel like I have to protect my family.
I was having trouble deciding what candy I wanted. Then I heard gunshots. I looked down to see that one of my friends had blood coming out of his back and his mouth. The next day, I pulled on my shirt and got strapped with a gun I found in an alley by my house.
I don't even know how this war started. It's just two sides who tripped each other way back. Who cares about the history behind it? I am my father's daughter, and when they call me to testify, I will protect my own no matter what.
Nobody cares what I do. Why should I bother coming to school?
My friends are soldiers, not of war, but of the streets. They fight for their lives.
I hate the cold feeling of a gun against my skin. It makes me shiver. It's a crazy-ass life. Once you're in, there's no getting out.
Every time I jump somebody in and make someone a part of our gang, it's another baptism. They give us their life, we give them a new one. I've lost many friends who have died in the undeclared war. To the soldiers and me, it's all worth it.
Now that we've seen that video clip, I'm curious. What was your reaction as you watched the clip? What emotions were you feeling as you witnessed what those children were experiencing in real time and how that was related to what they were bringing behaviorally to the classroom? What events did you see that you considered traumatic in terms of the children's experience? And what types of traumatic events have the kids in your classrooms or in your offices experienced? I invite you to take a moment and reflect on this and pause the recording. Take some time. It's important to note that we don't have to condone behavior to have empathy for the person who is behaving in that way. It's really profoundly important that we understand that. I can have empathy. I can understand the origin of the behavior even and not condone the actions that the kid is having in real time or the adult that are harmful to other people in their presence. I have a friend whose daughter one time was hitting her other daughter, and she told her daughter, "It's okay to be angry. You can be upset, but you can't hurt someone else because you're angry." And I love this parenting moment because what she was teaching her child was that emotions are okay. And I want to recommend a book at this point that is just lovely by Dr. McLaren, and it is called The Language of Emotions. And it is a fabulous look through the emotions and what they mean, what they can mean, and then ways for us to work with those emotions. So important for us. I love the book also because it's just tons of emotions, and you open it up and there it is. Anger, joy, hatred, pain, grief. And we can learn about what those things mean, what they do in our bodies. And it's a lovely read. If you do choose to look at that book, I invite you to purchase a hard copy so that you can underline and make marks. Mine is completely marked up, and it's a really wonderful resource. So the question then becomes, what do we do with our emotions? How do we handle them? And we'll continue to cover that as we go forward. Right now, though, please take a moment with yourself. And I also want to acknowledge that these may be scenes from your life. In a study that I did for peace officers in California, looking at probation officers, teachers, all the people who worked in facilities there, I really looked at the ACEs of those people and had them take the ACEs, hundreds of them. And then I compared them to the ACEs of the kids that were in the juvenile facility. And what I found was striking. I found that in 4 areas, probation professionals, and that includes teachers working in the schools, cooks, laundry professionals, all of those folks who are working in support of probation's mission, had higher trauma rates reported in 4 areas on the ACEs. This was astounding to me. What I also found that was very interesting was that the resiliency rates of these professionals was higher. There wasn't so much of a difference in the reporting overall in the ACEs. What it told me was a story that probation professionals had teachers and mentors and coaches and rabbis, etc., who showed up for them, or parents, grandparents, guardians, whomever. And they had that security and safety, which in this video, the children did not. So take some reflective time now. How are you feeling? What's going on for you? What did this movie evoke for you? And then we'll come together again in just a moment. We're going to spend some time now talking about paradigms, what I like to call the invisible suitcase. My paradigms go everywhere I go. It's my little suitcase that I carry behind me. It's my beliefs about the world, how people behave, what people do. It's all my biases. And biases are simply a way that we look at the world. It's what I've been taught in some places, and it's also things that I've changed. So paradigms can change. We hear that, oh, we're going through a paradigm change right now. What does that mean? For these children, paradigms are ideas about themselves and the world, beliefs that they hold in their hearts and in their souls about who they are, how they're perceived, what their worth is really tied into what's happened to them historically and what they've been told. I told you a story earlier about Mr. Sussman. My father had told me over and over again, you're stupid, you'll never amount to anything, you're not smart. He told me that so many times that I internalized that and believed it until Mr. Sussman came along and gave me that test and told me that what my dad had told me wasn't true. That I, in fact, was clever and smart and could do very well academically. He changed the trajectory of my life, and I'm so grateful for him. Let's talk about what those paradigms might look like for these kids. We think about this suitcase and what's in their suitcase. And when I'm talking to people, I'm actually thinking about their suitcase. What is it that they're carrying around with them? You can't get rid of it. It goes with you everywhere you go. And for these children, it might be paradigms or ideas and beliefs that sound like this. It's all my fault. You're going to hurt me. And especially with teachers, if a kid likes a teacher and they really want to trust that teacher, boy, could it be really threatening for them to allow themselves to trust. So this is such a tender belief that we really want to be mindful around. That grown-ups lie. That nobody loves me. That I'm a bad person. That I could never amount to anything. How in the world could I ever become successful? This is the best my life is ever going to be. They feel stuck and they don't have the resources to get out of that. And that's where you come in. In your job, you can make such a difference by introducing them to different ideas and different paradigms and stories about people who have made it against all odds. And what we know is true is those people who made it against all odds had someone like you in their life. That's just the truth. Study after study tells us that. So how do we do that? We need to be aware, first of all, of those paradigms, what they are, and then start challenging those paradigms with the kid. And I ask questions like, is that true? I heard you say that you're stupid. This is basic motivational interviewing 101. I teach an 8 and 4 hour class about this, but we all know the simplicity of it. Reflective listening. Instead of saying you're not dumb, saying, I just really heard that you said that you were dumb. That feels painful to me. Is that what's true? Do you really believe that? Well, yes, I do. That's the messages that the world are giving me. Well, let's talk about that for a minute, because I don't see you that way. I see you as being really clever and very resourceful. Think about the resourcefulness of these kids that they've made it this far. Oh my goodness, amazing. Would you be willing to consider a different way to see this? Would you be willing to trust me? And would you be willing to trust in my belief in you, even for a moment, and just try on a different way of seeing yourself? So we can have those impacts even by introducing and planting that seed. And in my career, we said a lot. We may never see the tree that will develop from the seed that we planted. That may never happen. Miss Burke, I had the opportunity to run into as an adult and got to thank her. Miss Hoffman, I couldn't find her. I looked for her. Mr. Sussman, I couldn't find him. Looked for him. I would love to thank these people and share with them the impact that they had. I know what's true about you is you're already having a tremendous impact. You, because you're in this class, want to learn more so that you can actually show up in ways for your kids, for yourself, for your family, your community, all of it. And that is commendable. Thank you for that. Let's talk about the impact on emotional development now. Trauma's impact on emotional development. The biggest piece here, and because we've talked about paradigms, is that people have a limited way, a very binary way of thinking about things when they are living in a brain that is constantly activated. It's because of the amygdala. The amygdala only has a few resources. Remember, it's not very resourceful. It thinks in ways, this, that, right, wrong, black, white, good, bad. It has answers that are memorized and responses that are memorized. And our jobs really are to teach people that there are myriad colors in the crayon box that we can use. There's tons of shades of green that we can look at and utilize to problem solve in this situation or to see the beauty of life. It's very hard for people who have grown up in environments and suffered at the hands of others to see things in a way, a world of possibilities and ideas. So what they do is make their world very small. And this creates all kinds of things. When we think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which I must say was actually developed by indigenous people, and Maslow took that model and utilized it. When we think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, these kids are really at the bottom, and so their needs are very basic: food, water, shelter. What we're expecting of them is that they act like they're at the top of the pyramid. Problem solving is at the top of the pyramid. Here's a perfect example. When Maslow called people who live at the top of the pyramid exemplary humans, that's what we want. So teaching kids and asking them questions. What is another way to see this situation? Are there any other ways to handle this where you won't get hurt or anyone else won't get hurt? What are some other ideas that you may have? And I have some ideas too if you're interested in hearing. Really engaging kids in that. And what are we doing? You're building neuroconnectors. Kids have such plasticity in their brains. They're brilliant minds. And that plasticity is a lot better than ours. It actually decreases with age. These kids can learn. And sometimes when we plant that little tiny seed, even if the kid is saying to us, I don't want to talk about this, no, they may come back later and share with us that something shifted for them. I had a kid one time that I was working with, and I asked him what he was good at. He told me he wasn't good at anything. I asked him if he played soccer. I grew up in Ventura County. Every kid there in my generation played soccer. He says yes, and I said, tell me about a game you had where you did something really cool, where it really worked out for you. So he told me about this game with great excitement. I said, I tell you what, when I see you tomorrow, I'd like you to tell me something else about yourself that's really cool. And he said, there is nothing else. I can play soccer well. And I said, well, just think about it. Would you be willing to think about it? And he said, sure, I'll think about it. So he came back the next day to me and said, I got something. Here it is. This one day, my mom was pregnant and she started to have her baby. And we're real poor and we don't have a phone and we didn't know what to do. And so my mom said, you're going to have to deliver this baby because there's no one here to help. And he said, I was just a young boy. Mind you, this kid was under 18, still a young boy. Nevertheless, so smart. He sent his sister off to the neighbors to phone 911 to get help there. And then he proceeded to deliver the baby with his mother. And he said to me with great joy, the story still gives me goosebumps. He said, I caught the baby in my arms. It was amazing. It was kind of like a football. She just came out in my arms. And I said, amazing. Look at you. Already with more experience than some people entering medical school. Who knows what you could be? Even a doctor. To which he responded, oh my gosh, you're out of your mind. There's no way. That's not even a possibility for me. And I said, who knows what's possible for you? We left. The next day, he came into my office and he said, can I talk to you? And I said, sure. And he shut the door and he said, this is really private, but I want to ask you a question. I said, what's that? He said, do you really think I could become a doctor? As I like to say to my friends, for the win. Whether he becomes a doctor or not, he's thinking about possibilities now. We have gotten him out of that amygdala brain, that primal brain. He's in his prefrontal cortex and he's thinking about what might be possible for his life. Those are the seeds to plant when people have what we call limited thinking. We want folks to have generative thinking, really thinking about all the beautiful possibilities. The thing about limited thinking is it can and sometimes does keeps us safe. In an environment where my dad's going to come out home every night and there is going to be a domestic violence scene, I need to be prepared and there are certain things I need to do because I don't have control in that situation over his behavior. And that may teach me to have limited thinking in all kinds of other ways. That this is how it is, that this is my destiny, that this is how people are, that when people get angry, people get hurt, that there's not a healthy way to actually manage emotions. All of that. So important for us. I love the little crayon box analogy. How do we teach people that there's many shades of green? And when we log into that and start to question people about what are different options in this moment that you could take, whether you would or not, it doesn't matter if you even can or would. What are some different options that you could take in this moment? And that's how we shift thinking. That's how kids build new synapses. That's how we shift paradigms. I think it's actually really exciting. I've done a ton of this work in my own life and really looked at my deep-seated beliefs, my paradigms around my own worthiness, my own intelligence, my own all kinds of things, and have made profound shifts. So I know it's really possible, and that's what brings joy to our life. Possibilities, dreams, visioning, thinking about what could be. in real Technicolor. We've completed another segment now. Thank you for joining us. The color for this one is red, in the red Padlet. And there are videos there and lots of information for you to use as resources. So when you go to the Padlet, looking around there, all the red resources. Some of the videos are hard to watch. I've mentioned that before. And I invite you, as you have energy, space, and time, to choose to watch them so that you can really enliven and grow your knowledge and understanding of what is going on with these kids. So red for this time. Next time, we will be talking about intersectionality, and I'm so excited about this topic. It's one of my favorite things to talk about, and when I learned about this, it's the work of Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw, it changed the way I see the world and people, and I started looking at things in a very, very different way. The color for that is this blue color, so if you want to jump ahead, feel free, you sure can. And always remember that the resources are available for you, Foster Youth Services Coordinating Program, and then the Homeless Education Program. There's people there if you want those resources, in addition to the myriad resources that they've already sent us that are uploaded to your Padlet. So I'm hoping to see you next time for Module 8, which is intersectionality. I'm looking forward to it very much, and I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. Thanks for being here.